Welcome to the Supplement Engineer Podcast. My name is Robert Shanetsky. Today, we are joined by the owner of Morphogen Nutrition, Ben Hartman. In addition to owning Morphogen Nutrition, Ben is also an accomplished natural bodybuilder, competitive powerlifter, and strongman athlete. He holds a bachelor's degree in exercise physiology and a master's degree in nutrition and dietetics. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ben.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad. I know we've talked a lot about getting this set up over the last year, so I'm glad we could finally line something up. So
yeah, it's long overdue, and you're one of the active members in Justin's Supplements New Facebook group, so it's good that we actually get to do this more face to face.
I like that. I like that a lot of like-minded people are starting to network more and more and connect, and it's not just the traditional industry insiders that are business-focused people.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
But what led you, because you have a background in fitness, what led you to actually start Morphogen? Obviously, there's tons and tons of companies out there, so what made you throw your hat in the ring and say, I can do this better than the other 4,000 companies that are doing this?
Yeah, so there were two reasons. So one is a lifetime ago, I was sponsored by a pretty big company back before there was any affiliate codes or really any social media. And I competed for them and did photo shoots and worked with the Arnold and did all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was cool at the time. It was exposure. It was some free product. It was some compensation for stuff. Right. And then it got to the point that they released a specific product that they still have out to this day. And I felt very torn on promoting it because it was a proprietary blend. It was obviously bullshit dosing, whatever. And I just felt so jaded that the industry was going in that direction at the time. Mm-hmm. And I had some connections in manufacturing, and I had some, a lot of friends that owned other brands or store chains or what have you. Mm-hmm. And my wife and I had a little bit of money set aside in savings because we were both kind of broke at the time. Mm-hmm. And I basically said, I'm pissed off. I'm going to start my own thing. I know that I can do something. The other side of that coin was at the time, I was in fitness management at a major university. I ran all the recreation wellness programs. I taught part-time in their sports science department. Mm-hmm. I mentored students. I did a lot of stuff with them, but financially it's not a very successful career. Right. And I was the best of the best that ended up getting the job over, hundreds of applicants, and I still was making relatively shitty money. And my wife's an accountant. She was very good at her job, but she was kind of stuck, and neither one of us could move up. And one day, my boss at that job came in and quit. Mm-hmm. The reason she quit is because she was working her ass off so much that her youngest daughter called the babysitter mom.
Wow!
She had a nervous breakdown and quit. And I go, okay, so if she's working her ass off and she makes more than me, and I make garbage, and she never sees her kids, what's going to happen to us? And am I going to spend half my money on childcare? So the original idea was a combination of frustration with what was going on in the industry and also a utility aspect of can I work from home, provide childcare for free, and supplement my wife's income if she were to get a better job and be able to move up the ladder a little bit. So the original goal was never to be a big company. The goal was to do something that I loved, to apply my experience and my knowledge, and I mean, I'll be honest. The goal was to make stuff that I wanted to use as a competitor when I was very actively competing. Back when nobody, and I remember going, why doesn't anybody just take everything you need in a pre-workout and put it all in one scoop in like the right dose?
Right.
And then when I figured out why they do that, I go, oh, well, no shit. It's expensive to do that. And at the time, everybody was focused on distribution. That's what the game was. Mm-hmm. And it was, once I got some quotes going, I go, okay, so, it costs this much to make. And the stores that I contacted initially, before we even launched the brand, were like, well, we want to buy it for this and sell it for this. So you need to make it for this. And you need to have it marked up on your website so they're motivated to go to our store instead of your site. And all of that circumvented why I wanted to do the company in the first place, which was not making shitty formulas, which is making something that has full dosing, all ingredients, one big scoop. Mm-hmm. And I go, why don't I just make something that's like ultra good and just see if I can sell it direct to the people for the same sort of price, and then I don't have to cut in all these middlemen.
Correct.
And at the time, nobody was doing it. It wasn't even a thing back then. Mm-hmm. And for the first 5 years or so it's been about 8 years. The first 5 years, everybody I talked to, Ben, you're doing it wrong. Your products are too expensive. Don't put that ingredient in there. It's too expensive. Or, don't cover shipping and handling. Why don't you charge the customers? Or, all these things. Yeah. And I go, I know that that's not the way everybody does it, but there are 1,000 companies or more that are doing it that way.
Hmm.
What if somebody comes along and shakes things up and does things so differently that they're ultimately in their own lane? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you were,
Given it's a small lane, but my
yeah.
essentially my own lane. Yeah.
The term disruptor is thrown around a lot these days, but back then when you did it, you
I,
actually were creating a disruption in the commonplace of what everybody was doing.
I wouldn't say it was a very large disruption with any magnitude at all, but it was definitely something that was not traditional and not expected by a lot of people. And we dumped our savings into it.
Hmm.
We had no idea what we were doing. I still to this day tell people that I'm not a businessman. Like,
Hmm.
yes, I'm running a very successful business now, but I don't know business. I don't know everybody else's business.
Hmm.
I just know what we've learned about our own business by trial and error over years and years and years of grinding and fixing things,
Yeah.
um, and funneling the money back into the company, and
Hmm.
you know just seeing where the brand could go and what we wanted to become.
Right. When y'all decided to start Morphogen, did you have any children yet? I know y'all have two kids
Now,
now. Okay.
yeah. So yes, we have two kids now. So our daughter is almost 4, and our son is 1.5. So Morphogen was around for about 4 years before she was born, a little over 4 years.
Do you think you would have made that jump had you already had kids or not? Because looking back on it, I've got a 2-year-old, and when I decided to jump from engineering into the supplement industry, I look back and I wonder if I had a kid at that point, would I do that? So I'm always curious what other people in
Yeah,
the same
that's a good
situation would
question.
think.
I mean, there's something to be said for stability and knowing what's
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the responsibility aspect of it, but knowing that half of that money would have been gone for childcare anyways.
Hmm.
We talked a little bit before all this. I used to coach people a lot, and the original idea before the supplement idea came about was that I was just going to coach people and just supplement our income and make maybe less than my old job, but it was going to offset the cost of childcare because I would work from home and do childcare for the first 2 or 3 years of whatever
Hmm.
these kids' lives were.
Yeah.
We ended up following that plan just before we had kids. And it was literally, well, we're not going to start having kids yet, but we might as well do this now and
Hmm.
see what happens. And so we started Morphogen. The first year was absolutely chaos because it was even without the kids. So I was working 50, 60 hours a week at a salaried position that was way overworked. I was
Right.
teaching part time. I was finishing grad school, and we had just gotten married a little bit before that. We had just bought a house. We had just got a dog, and then I started more. So literally,
Holy
and
shit.
so I would get home at 10 o'clock at night and stay up till 1 or 2.
Hmm.
Working on rudimentary website stuff and handwriting labels on boxes to be shipped out.
Hmm.
And then I'd get up in the morning, and my wife would already be gone because our schedules didn't match up. And during my lunch break at work, I'd go to the post office and drop off the orders from the previous day. And it got to the point that we're like, all right, if we can make this transition before we have kids and build this up a little bit, maybe it could be something even better than just supplementary income.
Yeah.
And fortunately, that's kind of what happened.
What were some of the challenges? When you started the brand, around 8 years ago, the industry has changed a good deal since then. What were some of the early challenges that you experienced with founding Morphogen back then, and how have you seen the industry evolve over those 8 years?
Exposure and social media is a total. I mean, it's crazy.
Hmm.
It's great because I come from the original Facebook era. In college, I was one of the college kids that got Facebook.
Yep, me
I
too.
remember when Instagram was first developed. I thought it was going to be the stupidest thing in the world, and I avoided it for a number of years. And a bunch of the early fitness people that got on there and figured it out, they all have like 1 million, 2 million followers now, and they're making a killing because they were the first people to do it.
Right.
And even well into Morphogen, I was like, I don't know if this whole social media thing is what I wanted to do, but it was inevitable, at least in terms of communicating with people. So the aspect of reaching the consumers, of answering questions, of educating, all that is fantastic. I love
Hmm.
that stuff. What I don't love is there's such a high emphasis on analytics and algorithms and social media campaigns and the ad campaigns and all that, and I just don't give a shit about any of that stuff, and I never wanted that to be the reason that anybody bought the product.
Right.
So in the beginning, thankfully, I had good reputation in the industry, and social media was, especially Facebook, was in its infancy a little bit,
Hmm.
but Facebook was a lot bigger than from an exposure standpoint, and they didn't
Right.
nowadays it's like you have to do a sponsored ad to get any sort of traffic. But back then, you posted something and it showed up in hundreds of people's timelines.
Correct.
And so I was sometimes a polarizing figure with some of the stuff I used to say. I was more abrasive in my youth a little bit, more abrasive and arrogant, but it is what it is.
Gotcha.
But I used to just put so much information out there, and people believed in what we were doing, and they bought it. And I always said, if we make something that's undeniably great, maybe even the best of that specific category, the best of that type of product, somebody's going to try it and they're going to go, this absolutely is better. I can feel it's better. My performance is better. My health is better, whatever. And they're going to tell somebody else. They're going to tell one person or give a scoop to one person out of their own pocket. Yeah. And then eventually one more person is going to buy it. And then eventually two, and then eventually four. And that happened right up until this crazy last 2 years of the social media boom. And it's gotten even bigger now because now there's the retagging and the swipe up stories and the constant Instagram stories. I mean, that's been huge for us, is the ability to reach more people without a forced marketing campaign, without forcing, the algorithms or the ad campaign. So for us, that was the biggest thing the first few years was the reach, because nobody, even now, people are like, oh my God, I'm just now finding out about you guys. It's been 8 years. Imagine how it was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who we were. I mean, 50 people, maybe 100 people.
Right.
And I'd say back then it was challenging because there wasn't as much networking on my part with company owners, and the research wasn't as diverse as it is right now, or as easily accessible. So even back then, I was well aware of what was going on in the research. I was very into research in general with my education, but nobody was so nitpicky like they are today, which I love. I love that there are so many people that are going, well, why is that only 2 grams when the research says 3 grams? Fuck yes, I've been asking the same question for 8 years. It's about time that the consumers are asking the same question that I was asking 8 years ago.
Agreed.
I love it. I love that that's a thing now. So
excellent. With your products, obviously they carry a premium price tag, but the doses are all quality. The formulas are stout and robust. Do you find it difficult to convince people to cast aside the BOGO products and the prop blended, pixie dusted bullshit out there in favor of something that is well dosed but also carries a little bit higher of a price tag?
Yeah, so it's funny you ask that, because I've had a lot of other people ask me similar questions. They're like, well, do you think you're alienating, the college bros or the beginners or the people on a budget? And my answer always is, they are not my customers. I'm not a marketing guy. I'm an education guy. So if I provide education that's rational and logical and easy to follow, and somebody still makes an irrational, illogical, emotionally based decision to purchase something due to a marketing campaign or just a price point and not any other factor, then I cannot, with the ways that I try to communicate with people, I can't communicate effectively with that person to convince them of what I'm doing, no matter what. So they're not my customer. But we don't make products for everybody in the industry. There are a lot of really great brands out there that are doing great things, and our products are still better. But those are really great brands because they're meeting the needs of the many, right? And the fact that the 90% of the industry has access to these better formulas, these better disclosures, all this kind of stuff is a fantastic thing. Our whole, again, my little teeny lane out of a multi-billion-dollar industry is a pretty big fucking lane, to ride in.
Correct.
Even if more people, slowly start joining that lane. So I don't really worry about that. I've never really worried about reaching those people or convincing those people, because if somebody, it's not a matter of not being educated. It's a matter of not willing to become educated or using a logical thought process to make a decision. So that's how I do everything that I do. And I know that's not how everybody does it. And the people that don't do it that way, I can't relate to that. I'm not trying to match that.
I understand.
If somebody goes and does some BOGO and can't see, like right now there's companies doing BOGOs. It's like, buy one, get one 50% off, and use some athletes 30% off discount code on the whole order. How much do you think you're getting ripped off? Do the math. Do some simple math. Literally take 5 minutes and do some simple math on the value of what the actual product is, and then look at the dosing all the information is very readily accessible these days, unlike it was 10 years ago.
Correct.
You can look up every ingredient in 5 minutes and find 10 credible sites that have pretty common dosing of what it should be with all the studies right there. I mean, everybody has access to it. And if you are still convinced to do something with somebody else, then I can't help you.
That's especially, this is on the back end of Labor Day, is that we're recording this episode, and there's so many brands that are doing BOGO this or add this and you get free this, and you got to think, okay, if you're able to sell a product and then you get X, Y, and Z free with it, how much do you think is actually going into making that product? I mean, the thing's going to cost no more than like $5 to $9 to actually produce it, but they're going to go and sell it for $40 in a normal circumstance. It's just
40 plus shipping, plus it's ridiculous. And you mentioned like the premium price point. Mm-hmm. Yes, our prices are premium, but they're not. Like, I mean, I've seen stuff that's $55, $62. There's a company out right now that has very average formulas or even single ingredient formulas for $50, $70. Ridiculous. But they have BOGOs and they have 20% off discount codes, right? Mm-hmm. And they build themselves as premium because they have premium prices. We noticed that when we had everything set at a certain price range, mm-hmm. and it wasn't too unaffordable, but it wasn't so low that it cheapened the brand, that added perceived value to what we were doing.
Right.
And then people started going, well, you could again, Ben, you're doing everything wrong. Everybody goes, you should be charging more for these products. And I said, or I can sell 5 times as many. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. Eventually. And then I don't feel like a shady salesman, mm-hmm. Hawking stuff and nickel and diamond people. They go, Ben, why are you even paying for shipping? I mean, like this year alone, mm-hmm. we're going to spend 6 figures on shipping and handling fees.
Holy
ourselves, out of our own pocket. I mean, I could like pay myself that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But, and people have always said, why don't you not do that? And I've always said, if we do that and it gives perceived value to what they're receiving, then yes, it's a premium good at a premium price, but you're getting these little perks in here, not just the quality of the formula and the totality of the formula. But if we throw these little things in there that don't cheapen the brand as a whole, mm-hmm. but they give back to the consumer a little bit, more of those people are going to end up purchasing that product. And then we don't get buried in this, crazy industry that does heavily market and does heavily try to influence people with all these different things. So then I stand out even more. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going to lose, $100,000 or whatever it is on shipping, but we are way bigger today than we were a year ago and 2 years ago and 5 years ago. And part of that is because we've done stuff like that. So can I say that we'd be this size if we weren't doing those things? I don't think we would be.
Gotcha. What is your methodology when you go about creating a new formula?
So I always backtrack. I always reverse engineer. So I look at any product category and you got to say, what is the goal of this product? Mm-hmm. Let's say it's a pre-workout. That's always the one everybody talks about. Yeah. So nowadays everybody goes, well, this one's a high energy and this one's a performance and this one's a pump and this one's a this. And I said, well, if you want it to do all these things, what are the ingredients that do all these things? What are the dosages? What's the synergy, if there is synergy there? Right. Can you work backwards and put all of it on paper? And then can it be created? Can the price be right? Can it be flavored? Mm-hmm. Can some of these ingredients even be sourced by the same manufacturer? And then it's a problem-solving situation from that point on. Right. Whereas most companies, I think, set a dollar amount and they work upwards from there. I'm working backwards from there. And then when I end up getting a quote, sometimes I get quotes and I'm like, oh, that's a little steep. And then I go, but we could do it and it'll sell. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, fuck it. Let's just do it. Let's do it. Yeah. And we've done that with every product. And as we've grown, we've actually done that again and again and again, to where when we have a little more money to play with, we're able to put a little bit more into every product and cut that margin down a little bit. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds counterintuitive. You're on an upswing. Why are you adding $3 to every product? Right. Because we can. Mm-hmm. Because we can. And during this upswing, we're getting more attention and we're getting some, I'll say lame copycats here and there, but mm-hmm. we're getting more attention. We're getting, there's more rapport in the industry. There's all this stuff. Why not set that bar even higher while we can, while we have the money to do so? I'm not in this to cash in an extra $2 a jug. You know mm-hmm. what I mean? Yeah. Whereas most companies are doing tens of thousands of units of product through distribution, $1 or $2 shaved off that margin or, off the manufacturing costs. Right. That's huge for them. but I'm not doing the volume of that. So if I can add $2 to $3 to a product that's already doing well, but sell twice as many next year, ultimately I'm going to be better off.
Correct.
And the brand as a whole is going to be better off. And so that's how we've essentially done it the last few years. Either adding that money back into each respective product, again, looking at kind of the reverse engineering aspect, or being able to create new products from that.
Gotcha. As a brand owner, do you find that consumers are more demanding for new flavors of currently existing products, or always on the lookout for a new product in general? Because it's quite often you see companies, they'll have, their arsenal or their fleet of products, and they're always just cranking out new flavors, but not really doing anything new with as far as products.
Yeah.
But y'all have a pretty diverse thing. Would you rather invest that money, say you've got extra capital, into developing new flavors or developing a new product
New product every time. For me. Yeah. So here's the thing. So we get a lot of questions about new flavors, and slowly we're doing new flavors as we're able to. We're never going to have 10 flavors of Alphagen pre-workout because that doesn't make any sense. Right. But protein powder, in a year, we might have 10 flavors because that does make sense because people do like that variety. But I would never jump the gun and immediately release 5 new flavors right now and not release the next 5 products that I plan on releasing. So at least for us, part of the reason we've been able to grow so much is because when I'm able to purchase the next product to fill any gaps in the entire line, I'm going to do that so the line becomes more and more and more unbeatable. And then you can offer some variety. You know what I mean? Right. And then you can diversify flavors and do that kind of stuff a little bit. And that's been part of my mission the last couple of years was, even 3 years ago and 2 years ago, there's several products we have right now that I never thought that we would release. And there's several that I'm in the development process right now that I thought we would never, ever, ever touch. And we're to the point now that if the line is so complete, and if there's ever one thing that's missing, I don't want a customer to ever be able to challenge anything we do and say, well, everything looks good, but this is missing. And that could be one ingredient from a formula. That could be one type of product in the whole line of products. Okay. So the goal is to make every individual product and the entire line as complete and undeniable as possible. And then you can tinker with, new flavors and new, whatever.
Gotcha. When you first started the brand, flavoring technology wasn't where it is today, and I don't think the consumer was as demanding for products that were as equally as effective as they were delicious tasting. Where does flavor fall on the spectrum for you of, do you really not care about the flavoring and you just want the thing to perform exceptionally well? Or do you kind of err on the side, agree with the consumers that, hey, the taste really should be there too. There's not an excuse for it.
It's both. So, again, I'd like to give the benefit of the doubt to our educated, more serious customer base. Yeah. They take things seriously. They care a little bit more. I would like to think that they don't focus just on flavor as opposed to, the formula, the effectiveness of the formula. But that's naive to say that. I drink this stuff too. I want it to taste good. And because we have the ability to flavor stuff better because the flavoring industry in itself, in and of itself is so much better, there's no reason not to at least try. Now, there are some things that no matter what you do, they are not able to be masked 100%. Yeah. So then you go, okay. So like our Volugen is one example. Volugen tastes good. Yeah. It does not taste like Synthogen, our amino product, which is incredible. It's never going to taste like that. Yeah. We could have taken out the Pico 2 and the Vasodrive and the rhodiola and some, and these earthy ingredients and made a pretty good product that was easily flavorable and sold the shit out of it. But instead, I put these 3 awesome, expensive, nasty ass ingredients in it. We flavored it as much as possible. And we took a chance, and people liked the formula more than they liked the flavor. Now, with something like an amino product that they're drinking in quantity and sipping over, the course of a day or during a training period, those have to be delicious. There's no cutting corners. But like our joint product, Orthogen, it's a teeny scoop. You put it in this much water, and it's just done. Yeah. And it's all right, but it's not delicious by any stretch of the imagination. But it's a fucking incredible formula that works so well, and you can drink it in 2 seconds. Yeah. So I'm not concerned.
When you're formulating products, do you find, given your athletic background, but you've also got the science background too, do you find yourself more drawn to enjoying formulating performance-based supplements or general health and wellness
I
formulas
love
more?
that question. If you would have asked me that 2 years ago, it
Mm-hmm.
would have been performance based. I mean, we
Yeah.
thought the whole company from day one was going to be this sort of sports performance company. We
Mm-hmm.
started with Alphagen. We came out with Synthogen. We had early versions of more hardcore fat burners, and think bodybuilding industry,
Right.
powerlifting, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And as we've expanded the reach, again, I've looked at holes in the industry. I've looked at holes within our own brand, and
Mm-hmm.
I've started to get more into the health and wellness side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And both because it's a passion of mine, but also because the industry is showing a lot more need for that sort of thing.
Right.
Something like our Morphoprime, a very comprehensive, full spectrum organ health product
Mm-hmm.
that you see companies doing now. Nobody was doing it 3 years ago when we released Prime. Not like
Right.
this, anyways.
Yeah.
In a 6 capsule dose with crazy high amounts of like all these awesome stuff. People were selling, 2, 3 ingredient formulas in stacks. So you have to buy 3 bottles of pills or 5 bottles of pills.
Correct.
And I remember back, and I'll tell you, a big reason that I created that product was my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a family history of heart disease and high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and my dad is very proactive about that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he just wasn't going to take 10 different pills a day. He
Right.
wasn't going to buy all of them. He wasn't going to measure, stick them all in a cup. He wasn't going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, again, the same thing with Alphagen. Why doesn't somebody create something that's all in one product and you just take 3 pills here, 3 pills here, and you're done?
Yeah.
And can it even be done? And can it be made at the right price point? So we did it. And I never thought it would be a hit product. And it's our second best-selling product right now.
Really?
Pretty much our second best-selling product, yeah.
Huh.
And more people are getting on board with not just the physical wellness standpoint of things, but also the mental psychological aspect as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like Morphocalm sales have just been outrageous because people want to feel better. They want to think better.
Right.
That seems to be even more important than just strict, creatine and beta alanine, performance type stuff, which
Mm-hmm.
is great. And we're never going to not do that. But I don't think that's, if I had to pick a future of the industry as a whole and the future of our company as a whole, it's going to be more and more and more of that and less of the performance based.
I think you can reach a larger demographic of the supplement buying population too, and you expand to the general health and wellness stuff, and you're not just isolated to performance-based supplements.
Yeah.
So, do you
Yeah,
have?
it's the
Or
same
go
thing.
ahead.
It's like I talked about completeness of the line.
Mm-hmm.
I also saw a hole in the industry where I was seeing companies do these things, and I go, it can be done so much better. Could we even do it? And I'm always so curious. Can it be done? Can I do something better on my own end? Can
Mm-hmm.
I become more efficient with my own job? Can I be better at my marriage? Can I create better products? Can I offer better customer service? What can I do to constantly? It's like I just can't slow down. It's like
Mm-hmm.
my whole life is like that.
Yeah.
So when I see these holes with these other product categories, even if it's something I never thought I would want to touch,
Mm-hmm.
if I know that I can do it better and we're in a position that we can actually do it now, you bet your ass I'm going to try. Absolutely.
Excellent. Do you have? How do you decide whether a product goes capsule-based or powder-based as far as delivery form?
Serving size, usually. Serving size, flavor, maybe. Some of that could be, so we pay shipping. So some of that could be if I make it and if you make it into a powder form, it's not only going to be potentially more expensive to make because you have to have a bigger tub with flavoring agents and desiccants and things like this, but it's going to cost more to ship. It's going to take up more space in a shipping container.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have to look at if we're tackling the cost and all that stuff on the back end,
Mm-hmm.
how much does that cut into the margin of the product? Does it even make it worthwhile to make?
Okay.
It's funny because everybody goes, well, make that a powder because nobody wants to take 6 capsules in a day. I heard that a lot with a lot of our products.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have companies coming out with really bomb ass formulas of various stuff that are 6, 8, 12 capsule servings. You take 12 caps, spread it over the day, and people are really digging that sort of thing. And I like seeing that because not everybody wants to make a drink of like a health, a scoop of like a health drink that tastes like herbs and shit, and it's one flavor. No, you know what I mean? It's easier to throw back 3 capsules 3 times a day with your meals and be done with it. So it's a combination of the two. It honestly, when you look at the size of a capsule and what fits into the capsule, if it can be done and it's not like 20 capsules in a day, I'm likely to put it into a capsule. Now, I could come out with a really wicked pump product and put it in capsules, but people like powdered pump products because they throw them in their drink and they drink it pre-workout.
Right.
So, one, you can put more in a powder, but two, it's not going to, everybody's doing it in powder. If you all of a sudden did a pill product and said, take take 12 pills instead of that scoop of powder, people are going to go, you're nuts. I'm not taking fucking pills right before I go to the gym. So, yeah.
Gotcha. When you're selecting ingredients to include in a formula, what is kind of that lowest barrier of entry that an ingredient will qualify and pass spec and meet your criteria for being included in the formula?
Yeah, so I look at a lot of things. So I'm an evidence guy, but I'm also a meathead. I'm a bro, that for sure.
Yeah.
If everybody swears something works, I would be remiss to totally ignore that. I mean, that's irresponsible. Right. But first and foremost, I'm looking at some sort of data. I like numbers. Numbers and safety, absolutely. So my thing is put what you know is in there. Put in there what you know to be the best things ever in the right dose, no matter what. Then I look at, is there anything else that might be beneficial and won't be harmful that can be included? So there might be an ingredient that some people feel is good, some people feel is not. The research is like hit and miss, but it's not harmful to the formula and it might make it better. I'm going to try to put it in there as a just in case fail safe sort of thing on that. Both due to my own curiosity of the totality of the formula, but also because somebody out there is going to go, well, why don't you have this ingredient in your formula? There are some ingredients in a few of our formulas that I honestly don't think need to be in there, but they might make it better. And they're not harmful to put in there. And if it only costs me an extra $1 to put them in there, I'm going to do it.
Do you have an example of an ingredient or two like that for the listeners out there?
I mean, well, there's glutamine and Synthogen, and I always swore I would never do that.
Yeah.
There's limited, utility with glutamine supplementation, but it's not going to harm anybody. And the dose isn't so outrageous that it blew up our cost and changed the serving size and changed all this stuff. It might be good. It has some negligible benefits with glycogen replenishment, hydration. It's certainly good for gut disorders, which may be beneficial around training if you have any sort of GI distress.
Correct.
All these hypotheticals, right? Some people want it in there. Some people look for that. Some people swear by it. I don't think it needs to be in there, but we put it in there. Yeah, that's a prime example.
Gotcha. I want to dive deep on Morphobrain, if you're okay with that. Justin and I have been.
I have absolutely no boundaries or filters. You can ask me whatever the hell you want to ask me, and I'm going to answer it. So.
Awesome. Justin and I have been discussing this product. It seems every time him and I get together on a podcast, some Morphogen product gets brought up. And so first off, he wants to know, when is Nutrigen coming back? This is more of just kind of an elbow check, just to mess with you. He said,
"Fucking Nutrigen, I hate this." It's supposed to be shipping this week, but there's a fucking hurricane now, and everything is delayed. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I was more just a gag. He said, ask Ben about this and see how many curse words he says when you ask him about it. So Morphobrain, I've heard something called Thanos mode or the Thanos dose
mode.
Yeah.
So that was Court from over from the UK.
Yep.
So I was calling it the hero dose, and then Court came up with the Thanos dose. I'm like, that is so hilarious. So basically, so Brain is a very interesting product. It's probably our most controversial formula that I knew that I was going to push a few buttons making it. Everything else on our line has really no questionable anything. Everything's WADA compliant. Everything's great. And Brain was the one that I go, all right, I'm going to see what I can do with this. And again, safety first. I'm not going to do anything stupid.
Correct.
But trust me, we tested some versions that were not as safe in-house. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. So basically, when you take those ingredients that are not traditional stimulants, but some of them have some mild stimulatory properties, coupled with all the other nootropics and the cholergenics and all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
When you combine them with any sort of additional stimulants, additional nootropics, additional mood-enhancing compounds, it creates a very euphoric, high-energy, very tunnel-focused effect. Yeah. So what I found myself doing when we got all the test products in, is I was taking a few capsules first thing in the morning with some Alphagen instead of coffee or this energy drink that I'm drinking or something like this. And I felt like a genius. And I mean, for 6 or 8 hours, I just like would grind, and I didn't eat, and I didn't like do it. And literally all I would do is this.
Yeah.
And I was playing with the dose. And so we eventually came out with what I call the Limitless stack,
Mm-hmm.
a play on the Limitless pill, from that movie.
Right.
And it's brain, Alphagen, and Calm. And we threw Calm in there for the anti-anxiolytic effects to make sure that everybody was golden. Plus, Calm has some very relaxing, mood-enhancing properties, some focus properties in and of itself for people that are high-strung. And we tinkered with kind of the combination back and forth. And I'm like, you know what? If you take half a dose of all of these at the same time, it's the best you'll feel, and you'll be productive, and it's fantastic. And then I go, what if you took a full dose of all of these all first thing in the morning at once? I have to know, right?
Yeah.
I truly don't believe that it's dangerous to do that in most situations unless somebody's got an inherent condition, which they shouldn't be using any of this stuff anyways without physician's approval.
Correct.
So it's, that's neither here nor there. But so basically it's a full scoop of Alphagen with 6 brain at the same time. And it's a lot of nootropic stuff, covering every type of pathway, all the dopamine, all the everything.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the kitchen sink formula of like brain boosting, motivation, energy sort of thing. And I've done it for a long time anyways myself in various degrees. And I started telling a few people about it here and there. And then people started like telling everybody else about it and challenging each other to do it. And then they're like, let's do it and get on a podcast. I'm like, this is becoming like a thing. This is hilarious. Hilarious. I love it.
We need to do that. We'll get you, me, Court, and Justin all together, and we'll all take the Thanos dose and see what the hell happens. We'll rage
I
for
don't
like
want to talk
6
at
hours.
the same time as Court, because that dude, his memory of all these metabolic pathways with where enzymes convert, I don't remember all that shit. Like, he can just rattle it. I'm very impressed, and he just can just rattle that off.
Yeah.
I love watching his stories because he's very entertaining and very engaging, but it's like, he's like, oh yeah, tyrosine, decarboxylase, and blah, 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 blah. And he's just going on and on and on. I'm like, that is dope as fuck. I can't do that anymore. I used to be able to do that. Now that I have 2 kids and I'm answering, customer service questions all day, my knowledge is very pigeonholed.
I gotcha.
Away from that sort of thing.
There's a Drafenil in More for Brain, and
there is.
You read some things. I mean, it's obviously a relative of modafinil, which is one of the main wakefulness promoting compounds out there. And you'll read certain things that's saying it's, a Drafenil could be harsh on the liver. And I've spoken to some other people, and they said they've never experienced anything or there's not a substantial body of evidence to substantiate that. What are your thoughts on it? Obviously, you're okay using it since it's in the formula, but what?
I have a ton of thoughts. So when you look at a Drafenil, the dosing for people that were using it for narcolepsy back before modafinil was a thing were pretty high. I mean, we're talking like 600 to 1200 milligrams a day, usually around 1200 milligrams a day. Yeah. And those people over the course of 6 months of continuous use had slightly elevated liver enzymes. They had mild side effects like some eye twitching and some dull headaches and things. And so the general consensus was, don't use it more than maybe 5 days a week. Give your body a break, and then don't use it more than 6 months continually without a break. So we took those warnings and we put them on the bottle for the same thing. But when you looked at the therapeutic dose for non-narcoleptic recreational use, it was substantially lower, like in the 300 to 600 milligram range. Yeah. So our original version that we put together and tested in house had 600, and it was too much. Yeah. It was awesome from a focus standpoint and an alertness standpoint, but it definitely gave you some mild headaches. And I noticed after a few weeks taking it that like one of my eyes was twitching all the time. And all that's harmless and it goes away after you stop using it. Right. But again, you look at the 300 milligram dose is used in non-narcoleptic people. That's a situation that we look at, top end of the research dosing is the best, but sometimes you just can't use that, Right. So like, citrulline, we're going to put 8 grams. There's no harm in not doing it. But, even though research, 6 to 8 or whatever it is. Yeah. But it's something like a Drafenil, 300 to 1200 on paper looks really good, but in practicality and in conjunction with the other ingredients in the formula, it was not good. Same thing with like the phenylpiracetam. Dosing on that could have been way higher.
Right.
And we tried it, and it was uncomfortably high in conjunction with everything else. So, hang on, let's see. Let me grab this here. It was uncomfortably high, and that was something, tinkering back and forth that we looked at. What's the data say? But there's not any evidence on the synergy of these ingredients, so we just need to try it. And we put together several versions, and I shipped them all over the world to a number of different people, some pretty high influential people that I trusted, and got a lot of feedback. And ultimately what we came up with was the formula that you see today. It's interesting listing some of those ingredients. There's definitely a push right now where you're going to see some of these ingredients gone pretty soon across the industry. The phenibut's gone, and the hordenine is being pulled, and all these things are they allowed to be used? Nobody really knows right now. So Brain, the next batch that's coming out, is going to be have some mild tweaks to it. It's still going to have the adrafil in it, but we are going to pull the phenylpiracetam and the Nupept due to the potential illegalities that we might face down the road.
Right.
I don't think it's going to happen yet, but I don't want to wait and sit on inventory and then have something happen. I'd rather just get ahead of it now, put another awesome ingredient or two in there, make it a badass formula, and just say fuck it and get those out of there. And truth be told, I'll be honest, I've taken Nupept by itself. I don't think it does anything by itself. Some people love it, some people don't love it. That's one of those things that there was no harm in putting it in there, and it only added maybe $2 to the whole formula. So I said we got to put it in there because it might be synergistic, but I don't think it's the all-star of the formula by any stretch. The phenylpiracetam added some mild wakefulness and stimulatory, some anti-fatigue properties, but I don't think it's the all-star of the formula. So in the next round, we're putting something else in there that helps with anti-fatigue and stress management, but it's not as stimulatory and it's not at risk of being banned. So we're just kind of getting ahead of the curve.
Gotcha.
In 10 years, when adrafil's banned, we'll pull that too.
Would you ever consider just selling a bulk Nupept supplement, even though it's not including it in the actual formula, but just a bulk one?
Yeah, so one thing that we're starting essentially right now is a commodities line. So I'm calling it a commodities line, but it's not strict necessarily like one ingredient products. We're looking at 1 to 3 to maybe 4 ingredient simple things that can be add-ons to something else. So like the first one that we release is our Tudka product. Now that's a higher price point commodity because Tudka in and of itself is expensive, and we went way higher on the dosing than everybody else. But we have a creatine product coming out that's going to be a price point comparison product with any of the other cheaper bulk creatine monohydrates on the market, with a little bit of a twist to it on our end. We're working on a plain collagen product. We're working on a beta-alanine complex type product. And these are going to be lower priced add-ons. So I would absolutely, as we grow, consider Nupept capsules, or I've thought about GPLC capsules, because it's usually too expensive to throw in. If I wanted to do 4.5 grams of GPLC in Alphagen, it would add like 25% of the cost. Like we could never even make it.
Right.
And that would be that's like one thing that I would love to add to that, and it's just literally impossible. But we could do a standalone commodity product and have it be a 6 capsule serving, and have it be make it $24 or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. So
when it comes to product formulation, you'll hear certain things that obviously y'all do things basically to the max. You'll dose it. If the research says this, we're putting that dose in there. And you'll hear these arguments from people that say, well, these ingredients are synergistic, so we can get by with a third or a half of the dose of each of these, and so you don't need to do that. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's funny you mentioned that. I talked to Justin about that literally a week or two ago. There was another brand owner who came out on an IG Live 3 weeks ago, and he said that was his very argument.
Right.
The dosing on individual ingredients doesn't matter because the research doesn't look at synergy. And I say, that's an excuse for you to underdose every ingredient under the guise of synergy. What the fuck does that even mean? How do you prove that there's synergy there if the dosing doesn't have any merit? It's made up dosing. Right. I don't like made up dosing. All we know is what the research says. If the research says 50 milligrams of something and you put 17, why? Like, why are you making this up? Synergy? Are you a researcher that came up with 17 milligrams? No, you're some ex-bodybuilder who has his own supplement line, and you put an arbitrary bullshit dose in there. claiming synergy, and there might be some synergy. I'm not denying that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But the starting point is what the research says. So what I do, again, looking at something like Brain, is you look at what the
Mm-hmm.
research says, you
Right.
put it all in there, you try it, and then you scale back if you need to.
Yeah.
But if every product in a line looks like that,
mm-hmm.
they're underdosing it on purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
because there's not enough synergy going on that's going to be a harmful synergy at those max doses,
Mm-hmm.
to where it's problematic. Stimulants, of course, there's some questionable stuff going on here.
Right.
But when you look at the vast majority of ingredients, there's not going to be any dangerous implications of max dosing and combining them all in a product.
Correct.
So even if there is synergy, there would likely be better synergy at the full dose.
Yes.
And even if there's not necessarily better synergy,
mm-hmm.
you can't prove either or. So in my opinion, just put the full dose in there anyways, because people like the full dose, and then it removes any ability to be challenged. I've always said, if somebody comes
mm-hmm.
at me and says, I don't like your formula, why are these doses in here? And I can say, I didn't make these doses up. These are not my opinion. I don't believe that these are better doses. The
mm-hmm.
research shows that this is the dose. I didn't make it up. I didn't come up with the criteria. I'm following the research. I'm putting that dose in there.
Yeah.
Period. Versus somebody going, well, just try it, bro. I swear it works. It might, but I don't like that. I like something to fall back on, and that's the data.
Mm-hmm. One of the trends in the industry right now, and it's been slowly escalating up and up and up through the past couple of years, is the caffeine content of pre-workouts. Now, AlphaGen contains, I would say, a very appropriate and modest amount of caffeine. You've got other products that include, between 500 and 700 milligrams. What are your thoughts on the increasing rates of caffeine in pre-workouts, and do you think it is as dangerous and muscle pump killing as a lot of people make it out to be?
I love this question. So caffeine's cool. I was involved in quite a bit of caffeine research back in grad school.
Mm-hmm.
Traveled over the place, did a bunch of caffeine research on power output and strength and endurance, and we know that caffeine works. And It's funny when you look at caffeine as a standalone ingredient. It's funny you mentioned this. We just talked about synergy of ingredients and the dangers of max dose. Caffeine by itself, based on the research,
mm-hmm.
crazy doses.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of these people had gastric upset, they got heartburn or diarrhea or stomach upset, that kind of thing. But we're talking like 600 to 900 milligram caffeine doses for a guy my size. I mean, like a whole pot of coffee, essentially. Nobody has any business putting that much caffeine in a product with other stimulants, because that's irresponsible. And here's the thing: stimulants are interesting. We use stimulants in a pre-workout primarily to increase performance, or that's what we should be doing. A pre-workout is supposed to make you better at what you're doing. It's not supposed to make you cracked out or feel like you're going to die or sweat or any of these things. That's not what it's supposed to do. Right. It's supposed to make you better in the gym so that you get better results. Part of that is psychological. Part of that is physical. Mm-hmm. Part of that is metabolic. I'm okay with a lot of caffeine if that's the only stimulant in there, and if it can be variable. And here's the problem with stimulants is, if you put 600 milligrams of caffeine in there, but then you tell people that they could take 1 scoop instead of 3, every ingredient in there, what's the dosing like at that 1 scoop?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like with AlphaGen, we know that some people take half a scoop. So when you look at all the ingredients, the research would support a half dose of everything that's in there, because research usually has a range, range of stuff. So like if research says, somewhere between 1 and 2 grams of this ingredient is good, and we put 2 in a full scoop, but you use half scoop, you still get the 1, so you're in that range.
Right.
If you start with 1 and now you're only getting half, it doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I would caution people against something like that, because then you have to look at the rest of the ingredients. If you can't use enough of it, are the rest of the ingredients actually doing anything at that dose?
Mm-hmm.
So AlphaGen is a mild caffeine, but it's not just caffeine. So and some people look at that all the time. Oh, there's only 200 milligrams of caffeine. There's also 100 active milligrams of both theocrine and dynamine in there.
Yeah.
Plus synephrine and hordenine. Hordenine is going to get pulled in the next round of batches.
Yep.
And it's cleaner than 400 milligrams of caffeine, but our old version before theocrine and dynamine existed had 400 milligrams of caffeine. Mm-hmm. And that was a well-tolerated dose by everybody that needed a full scoop. but like my wife didn't need a full scoop. She's teeny. So she would use half a scoop and get an efficacious 200 milligrams. It's very safe and well tolerated, and still get efficacious doses of all the other ingredients.
Right.
The teacrine and the dynamine are a little interesting because of the rates at which they peak in the body, the lack of habituation, the lack of blood pressure, side effects, the lack of anxiety, all these, the heart rate increases, all these sorts of things.
Right.
So that's potentially a better way to do it, is have a high stimulant product that combines things that are less problematic. You're going to see this happen every few years where it's some new ingredient and it's like the ingredient wars, and everybody's going higher and higher. It was citrulline, and I'll admit we did it too, but I still put 8. I didn't put 9, because there's nowhere that says 9. That's a made up dose, and that I don't like made up doses.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think the high caffeine content's fine. I think you have to look at what the rest of the formula provides, because if that's the selling point, what are they doing with the rest of it?
Right.
And caffeine is super cheap, and by itself at high doses can cause some problems. If anything, it can make you feel like shit, which I think is problematic towards productivity in the gym.
Yeah.
I would look at more of a well-rounded stimulant and nootropic mix of stuff to not overwhelm any one pathway.
Yeah. Have you experimented much with dynamine and teacrine on their own? And
Yes,
do you think that they offer much by themselves, or are they best with caffeine?
Oh, absolutely with caffeine.
Okay.
So it's funny. So when they first came out, teacrine, everybody was jumping on board, and there was very limited evidence in the beginning. And what we did know is that under a pretty high dose, it proved to be sedative in a lot of people.
Yeah.
And nobody really realized that. And all these companies were putting 40 to 60 milligrams of teacrine in there. That's sedative.
Yeah.
But by itself, that's sedative.
Correct.
In conjunction with caffeine, I think there is some synergy there, and some of the newer research is showing that. But again, it's still at dose. You can't put 50 milligrams of teacrine and 100 milligrams of caffeine and expect to feel fantastic.
Correct.
It's not enough.
Right.
Teacrine, dynamine, insanely expensive. Patented, trademarked ingredients. Now you can get generic theacrine, but good luck, and nobody's really using that anyways. So they're going to be expensive additions to a formula. If you're adding them to a pre-workout, they need to be the debittered versions, which are even higher in dose because they're only 40% active. So even a company going, teacrine, 100 milligrams, 40%. So it's 40 milligrams.
Exactly.
Not 100 milligrams. So we put 250 milligrams of each, yielding 100 milligrams of active, which is what they recommend to pair with that equal amount, the 100 and 100 with the 200 milligrams caffeine. And anecdotally, it absolutely works better than just caffeine by itself. And I've taken a ton of dynamine by itself and a ton of teacrine by themselves, and I didn't notice much of anything. Too much dynamine, I've noticed, made me ill. We tried some Alphagen that we had teacrine and caffeine in it. Then dynamine came out, and we tried samples without teacrine in it and just dynamine and caffeine, and replaced the teacrine with dynamine. And everybody was like, "I feel bad." Because it was it hit too hard, too fast, and it was too much at once.
Interesting.
And that's why we split the difference between dynamine and teacrine, knowing that they recommended the 100 of each anyways.
Yeah.
Instead of 200 of one, and that's what we did. So.
Gotcha.
So I think by themselves, I don't think there's a lot of application. I think they need to be stacked with other stimulants, and I think they need to be at dose anyways.
I'd agree.
Putting a sprinkling in there is doing a disservice to those ingredients. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree. I've never gotten much from dynamine, and I'm more of a skeptic on dynamine than I am teacrine, because I've used teacrine long enough by itself and stacked with caffeine to understand how I've responded to it.
Yeah.
Dynamine, I've used it in certain pre-workouts, and I get either no difference from caffeine, or it just makes me tired to where it zaps any kind of pop from the pre-workout, which is a really strange thing, because it was like 100 or 150 milligrams of dynamine and 300 milligrams plus of caffeine, and it made me tired.
But it wasn't 150 active dynamine, was it?
Yeah, it was that was active. Yeah, it was the active dynamine.
They put like 300 and some milligrams of the 40% dynamine in there.
Yeah, it was 300 or 325, something like that.
Yeah, see, when we tried that, it made people sick. I mean, like nauseous sick, and I don't know if it was just throwing off some equilibrium, and I could see where people would get, groggy or sedative from that, or loopy or ill. It wasn't good. Everybody that tried it just anecdotally said it wasn't good.
Yeah. Do you, with the 400 milligrams of theanine that's in there, do you find that it takes too much pop out of the kick from the pre-workout, or is it you get this kind of
I
cool,
don't know.
chill
So
focus?
we get that question a lot, and
Yeah.
a lot of people are very convinced that theanine acts as a sedative, and maybe in some people it does. It's not shown to do that, but absolutely, some people may do that.
Yeah.
We've had less theanine in the formula, and when we matched, so we essentially matched I'll call it the caffeine yield between caffeine, teacrine, and diamine.
Yeah.
We matched that with the theanine in there, but we remember too we have some other stuff in there that is going to balance that out.
Correct.
So it's not. If I were to come out with a 400 theanine caffeine product, people might go, this is kind of lame. But when you add in synephrine, when you add in some MAOI type stuff, when you add in a shitload of choline donors and choline, it changes the game completely. It absolutely changes the game, and it's funny because I talked to Justin a lot about that before he had ever tried it, and he's like, and he's talked very publicly. I just don't know if I'd like theanine being in pre-workouts. I just don't know. And I go, and I hate to even say this, try it, bro, because that's what everybody says. But at least mine's based on evidence, right? But I've always said, listen, the numbers line up with what is generally recommended in some research, but try it. And he goes, I felt different than any other product I've ever tried. He goes, I didn't feel cracked out, but I didn't feel groggy or tired or like out of it. He goes, I felt really good and focused and energetic, but calm at the same way. He was like, I was in like a zone. I go, that's exactly what we were trying to do. Yeah. Exactly. So we backtrack. What are we trying to accomplish? What are the ingredients that could do it? What are the doses? Can they be combined together? Is there a synergy between them? And then we test it, and then we tweak it a little bit and come up with the right end result. Gotcha. And that's what we did.
How much testing goes into a formula before you're ready to pull the trigger on it? How long would you say it's in development?
I mean, if it's a brand new idea from concept to shelf, I mean, we're looking at 6 months probably. But it could be longer than that. I mean, there's certainly some products that have been longer. Some of that could just be manufacturing delays or sample delays, or it gets put on the back burner. Some of it is, when I put together a formula, I'm within like 90% confidence that it's going to work. Like, even though I've never taken that product, when I put it down on paper, I for some reason, it's what I'm good at. I can conceptualize this. I put something down on paper and I look at it and I go, I can just tell that this is going to be good. Yeah, with 90% confidence. And usually only very small tweaks have to happen after that. Sometimes it's due to cost. Sometimes it's due to raw ingredient availability. Sometimes it's like a brain situation. I was wrong and it felt like shit and it was too much. But that's a situation that we knew was risky and we had to test several versions in advance. So that process could take a while because you have to get the samples made. You have to give them to the right people. They have to try them for a length of time. They have to compile their feedback, send it back to you. You have to take the notes. You have to reformulate it. You have to get more samples back and forth. And I'd rather take that 6 months to a year process than rush and go, well, we don't need to test this because it looks great on paper. Let's just roll. Yeah. If you didn't test in-house and tinker with things, I mean, you could release a new product in 6 weeks from idea to shelf. True. If you really rush. I mean, you could get a quote within 2 days and have your designer throw labels together within a week and then order labels and they're done a week later and then they run on production. Production could take 4 weeks. You could have a brand new product in 6 weeks. Yeah. That nobody's ever used or tasted or anything. And I don't think it's a good situation.
Do you see the industry starting to transition more to where it's going to be required for a third-party testing, since we're always seeing these reports about products either underdosing stuff or containing too many of things or not knowing? Are all these reports by Dr. Cohen and the wonderful work he's doing out at Harvard, bashing the supplement industry every chance he gets?
I don't know if there's ever going to be any mandatory anything. I do like that there's more of a push for consumer demand for that. I do like that that's even a thing now that people they're talking about GMP and COAs and third party, and these are buzzwords. Right. These were not buzzwords 5 years ago. Correct. And now they're buzzwords, which is awesome. Yeah. Now here, I'll say this. It is not going to happen that a company is not going to third party test the entire formula with 20 ingredients every time they run a batch of that product,
Right.
because that's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and weeks of extra testing every time you run a batch.
Right.
Part of that comes into play where if you're getting it made in a GMP facility that's in good standing with the FDA, and you're doing third-party testing on a regular basis, but not with every single thing every single time, there's a trust involved in there that you,
Right.
with high probability, this is coming out correctly.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way, unless, like there are companies that might own their own manufacturing facilities and they're running COAs on the final product of a test. They
Yeah.
might not be third-party COAs because that's expensive.
Correct.
And you can do that if your formula has 5 ingredients and they're simple to test for. If there's 20 ingredients and some of them are quite novel or isomers of something else, that's going to be multiple thousands of dollars every single time you run a batch of that. No company, even the best of the best, is not going to spend an extra $5,000 every single time they buy product.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not. So, and nor do I think it needs. I don't think it needs to happen. I'm completely honest with you. I don't think it needs to happen. I mean, when Kellogg's makes their cereal, they're running it for microbial agents before they release it into the box, which every supplement company does before that are made GMP gets released. It has to be cleared by a lab in some capacity.
Yeah.
But Kellogg's isn't doing a comprehensive nutritional breakdown of every single batch of Frosted Flakes for every vitamin and mineral and every macronutrient on the label, because they know that their practices have been consistently, accurate as they've been doing it. The raw materials are accurate,
right, and
the end result over time has always been accurate. So there's no reason to test it every single week and every single month when nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Again, the GMP thing is big. Offering third-party testing results on occasion, I think, is great. I don't think it's going to be a standard in the industry. I'd be shocked. And I don't know enough about the legalities or the legislation behind things.
Right.
I don't think that's ever going to be a requirement anyways, because again, that's not in food either. I mean, the FDA audits these GMP facilities. They're not FDA approved, but like food is FDA approved, and it still slips through the cracks and kills people. There's still
salmonella and all that things like that.
Yeah, shit that kills people. So no company in any manufacturing field is ever going to test every single thing in every single batch that they do. It'll never happen.
Gotcha. Do you think there should be a higher barrier to entry into the supplement industry than there currently exists?
Yes, I sure do. Oh my gosh. We talk about social media. There's a few manufacturers right now that are blowing up social media with start your own brand, and they have very low minimum startups, high prices on a low minimum, purchase. But you wonder why all these like brands are popping up left and right. It's a guy with $3,000 and he bought 100 tubs of something and it's in his closet, and he has a graphic designer who makes an ad look cool, and it's out there.
Yeah.
And now everybody has access to it because social media has put it in everybody's face. When we started getting into it, I mean, nobody even knew how to find a manufacturer. I was recommended by industry inside people that had connections, and I had built up, a reputation with these people, and they gave me their contact information. Nowadays, you go on Facebook and you find 5 supplement manufacturers on your timeline, and they're like, start a company with $1,500. Well, that sounds really good. And then it could be, we'll help you with the labels, and we'll help you with the whole process. And there's no screening on who's doing it. It's business people or people that are hoping to make business.
Correct.
It might be a personal trainer. It might be a guy at a mom and pop shop. It might be, somebody trying to moonlight something.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that grind because I've been there. Absolutely, I've been there. And I'm not saying I'm any better than these people that are doing what I did 8 years ago. But it is concerning now that it's so widespread, and that finding the information to do it isn't a barrier anymore. Because at least when I was doing it and some other companies were getting into it, getting into it was much more difficult in terms of finding the information and figuring out how to do it. And it deterred everybody that was in it for a quick buck or a side hustle. It deterred all those people from doing it. It was only the really educated, intelligent, passionate people that pursued that sort of thing. That's not how it is. So, So there are a million small little teeny companies with 1 or 2 or 3 products, because they're only buying 100 units or 150 units at a time. And if they cost $8 to make or $10 to make, you can start a business with $1,500. start a brand with $1,500.
Wow. I thought it was a little bit more expensive than that. I thought it was like 10 grand or something was the minimum to get a brand going. But
Well, here's the
wow.
thing. So if you're going with a really reputable manufacturer,
Yeah.
it's up there. I mean, it's 500 units of product usually at a minimum.
Okay.
And if you're making a better product, I mean, you're going to spend 10 grand.
Yeah.
On one SKU.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and that's a deterrent to people that are not in it potentially for the right reasons or don't have the gumption to put forth the right effort. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Give us some insight into your daily supplement usage, and are you a high caffeine user or not? I mean, I see you sipping an energy drink right there.
Yeah.
But
I mean, this isn't too high. This is, so my wife buys these Monster Zeros from Amazon Pantry, and they have 140 milligrams in them, and then they're delicious and cold, and they're in the fridge. So I just grabbed one.
Yeah.
I like stimulants. I like caffeine. I'm a very habitual caffeine user. Do I think I overdo it at times? Absolutely, I know I do, and I'm the first to admit it. My life is hectic, and I love it, but it's like from morning to night over a 16 to 18 hour period, I get very little time to just chill.
Right.
Part of that is a lot of that is self-induced, because even in the evening when the kids are in bed and we're watching TV, like I'm constantly getting DMs from customers, hundreds and hundreds a day, and I can't not look at them. And if I look at them, I got to respond. And if I respond, it's going to be a good response. It's not going to be a shitty little one-word response.
Yeah.
And half the time, it requires me to get on my computer and look at something on the website, or check on an order, or product inventory, or answer a question in depth. And sometimes I'll even take little videos and send it back to them, because I'm better at speaking than I'm typing with my thumbs. And I'll do that at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So, we have 2 young children, and there's a lot. So absolutely, I'm a big caffeine guy. I know I overdo it some days. I'm trying not to kill myself with it. But I think that, I'm also not a 100-pound person. And I'm not doing any like vigorous activity. I'm sitting on the couch most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm artificially doing something strenuous on top of habitual caffeine consumption. But I would say most days I'm in the gram range, maybe a little less. I mean, depends.
Yeah.
Like a day like today, I'll probably be at close to a gram, because and that's including with the 200 teacrine dynamine in there.
Yeah.
But if it's a day that I don't go to the gym, it's way less than that. I mean, it's 500 milligrams, 400 milligrams over the course of an entire day.
Yeah.
And some people go, 400 milligrams is a lot in a day. It's really not if you have 100 milligrams which is nothing.
I'd agree. Yeah.
I mean, how many people across the world drink 6 cups of coffee a day? That's 500 milligrams of caffeine or 400 milligrams of caffeine right there.
Easily.
That's a regular person who's doing a bunch of other shitty habits on top of that, not exercising and not healthful and not moving. I mean, if it were that bad, I mean, coffee is the number one beverage in the world. Caffeine is by far the number one abused drug in the world.
Yes.
And nobody's dying from it unless they're doing something really dumb, like powdered caffeine in 10-gram dose. Even like 5 to 10 grams, you would very likely vomit and have diarrhea long before it would kill you. I mean, you'd have to really try to do anything dumb.
Correct.
Strictly with caffeine. Now, you add a bunch of other stimulants on top of that and mix and match shit, best to you.
Right. Yeah.
Please be careful.
What role, if any, do you see as supplements having in performance and bodybuilding and achieving physique goals as somebody that's got a foot in both?
You mean in terms of like the total percentage of how much it helps in a general bodybuilding sense?
Yeah.
Like a large scale bodybuilding?
Yeah.
Well, so my perspective, that's a little different, because I'm a drug-free bodybuilder, and I don't give a shit what anybody does. I find the drug world of bodybuilding absolutely fascinating. It's just not a route I ever chose to take. And I don't judge or chastise. My own experience is not of that avenue. So for me, it's an absolute necessity, because you don't have an exogenous means of drastically altering what you're doing. Do I think a guy, trying to get his IFBB Pro card at nationals needs to have a $500 a month supplement budget? Nope. Probably not. Then again, probably if it's all health-based stuff, then they're, damn near killing themselves with drugs.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm an optimal guy, right?
Hmm.
Optimal dose, full dose, all the ingredients. If it might be good, add it in. If it makes sense, and if you can do it.
Yeah.
There's certainly a market for products that are middle of the road for people that cannot afford premium, and they want enough to be good, but it's not the extra 10%, right?
Yeah.
But that's not who I am. That's not my market.
Hmm.
I view bodybuilding the same way. Anybody that's absolutely serious about being their best drug-free bodybuilder or enhanced bodybuilder in any capacity, uh, it would behoove them to look into every possible avenue that could make them better intelligently.
Yeah.
Don't just
Right.
arbitrarily throw darts at a dartboard. But if something might make you better, or there's evidence to it, and it's affordable, and you can add it into the plan, then do it. I mean, some of these bodybuilders using performance enhancing drugs get insane pumps in the gym from their drugs. Do I think they need a specific pump product going into the gym? Probably not. But if they're using something like Volugen that offers an ergogenic benefit and an anti-fatigue benefit and a cognitive benefit and an anti-cortisol benefit and all these other benefits as the totality of that formula, it's absolutely going to be beneficial. Is their pump going to be even more if they're blasting a bunch of Anadrol or something? No, I don't know. I would probably say no,
Right.
but there's benefit to that. Do I think that a bodybuilder in that situation should boatload, sodium nitrate and nitrosogene going into the gym for killer pumps? No, I think that's a waste of them. I think that's a waste.
Gotcha. Awesome. What is your daily supplement stack right now consist of?
Go to our website and it's everything. No, so I'm not taking morpholine right now. I only take morpholine when I'm actually trying to lose body fat for something. Um, I pretty much take everything we make in dose. So there's not really anything that I take from somebody else. And again, that's partially because we're trying to make our line as complete as possible. I have some samples of stuff from other companies. I have some raw material, bags of powders, some random pills and stuff of shit sitting around that every now and then I'll toss into the mix. I know other company owners like Court and Tyler and these guys, and I have some tubs of their stuff that I'll switch it up every now and then. Just for the hell of it, but for the most part, it's literally everything we make in the dosages that I recommend on the label, taken at the times that I recommend on the label. And I get people all the time, and they go, "Well, yeah, but how would you do it?" I wrote the label.
Yeah,
that's how I would do it because
right.
I wrote the label. So
Exactly.
yeah, so that's and that's I don't want that to be a shady sales pitch sort of thing, but like legitimately, like I get my omegas from Morphomega, and I take Prime, and I take Calm, and I take Tests, and I take Alphagen and Volugen pre-workout, and I take Synthogen and Hexagen during training. And if I need a protein shake, I'll use Protogen, and if I don't, I'll just eat some food, and that's what I do. I mean, that's legitimately what I do.
Excellent.
And I mean, other than those samples, I honestly can't think of anything that I take that's extra. That's sitting over there. I have 10,000 tubs of samples and like little bottles of random shit. Like it's a disaster, but it's still all technically our stuff. And I usually don't add a lot of extra stuff. So
okay, perfect. I would love to go into the science of training with you, and I'm fascinated by the whole field of hypertrophy, and I'd like to get your thoughts on that. At the same time, I want to be respectful of your time because we've been on for about an hour and 15 minutes. So
we have. Shit.
Yeah. So it's 1:20 your time. It's 12:20 here. So if you're okay,
I love talking training. We could definitely do this some other time.
Yes,
soon.
perfect.
It's funny that you mentioned that because like I'm the supplement guy, right? I'm the supplement owner. I'm the nutrition guy. But my entire field of study before the nutrition stuff was exercise physiology. Pretty comprehensive in that. I was a personal trainer. I've taught exercise physiology courses. I was a biomechanics like savant back in college, like biomechanics and physics. I killed everybody. And I have a lot of thoughts on training and a lot of thoughts on hypertrophy and some of the new research that's coming out. I think some of it's good and some of it's absolutely terrible. And I never get to talk about any of that stuff because all anybody wants to know is, how do you take Alphagen? Label. I wrote the label.
Oh, good. I'm fascinated by it. I love reading through the stuff of like Mike Israetel, Eric Helms, Schoenfeld, all of those guys. So I will certainly get you back on the podcast in a couple of weeks, we can go deep dive into training too.
Keep bugging me if for some reason we don't line anything up. Just keep bugging me.
You got it, man.
I mean, there's so many things going on, and it's like I'll start plugging stuff in, and then something comes up or
Mhm.
something gets delayed. I'm like, fuck, it just ruined my whole week. And then everything just gets bumped. Everything, and then it just keeps getting bumped. It keeps getting
Yeah.
bumped, and a lot of that is my own fault. I wear too many hats and I do too much stuff, and it's
Yeah.
it's a weird place that we're in because the company's too big right now to be comfortable,
Mhm.
and I'm not comfortable outsourcing most of what I do to anybody else.
Yeah.
But we're not big enough that I can do that necessarily on a full time scale either. So
Right.
there's some growing pains there. But yeah, I love it. I'm glad that I can do it. It's a lot.
Gotcha. Well, again, thank you for being on today and carving out some time with us. Where can everybody find you? Do the sales company spiel and everything.
Oh fucking god, sales shit. Instagram is at Morphogen Ben.
Mhm.
It's funny because we don't even have a Morphogen Instagram account because we never thought we needed one because it was just me,
Yeah.
trying to convince people. And then I ended up changing it to Morphogen Ben, and then everybody's like, "Why don't you make a Morphogen page?" I'm like, "Because everybody kind of knows this one already, and I don't want to run two pages." So
Mhm.
at Morphogen Ben, it's Morpho. I always tell people it's Morpho Gen, and Morpho and Gen means create change. Those
Mhm.
are what those two words mean,
Yep.
or the creation of change.
Correct.
So Morpho at Morphogen Ben. The website is mntakeover.com. The brand is Morphogen Nutrition. MorphogenNutrition.com is too hard to say and spell, so we called it mntakeover.com. Facebook, I'm under Ben Hartman. Should be public. Trying to think how, I don't know. My
Perfect.
email is on my website. Yeah, shoot me an
Yeah.
email. Yeah, I mean, Ben at morphogennutrition.com. Yeah, it's all there. So
Awesome. Well, then I'll include links to all of that in the show notes. Thanks again for doing this, man. This was fun, and
oh
I'll
yeah,
get you back on soon.
love it.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
You too.